Welcome to Uncovering Our Hidden History. My name is Anna. I'm a genealogist as well as a historical researcher, and I started this channel in order to be able to have a platform or a place to be able to share all of my research from the last 5 years, information, teachings that we've been lied to about history that's been covered up or falsified, or only comes from the vantage point of the controllers. So if you have found your way here, welcome. We're very happy to have you join us. And once again, for those that have been with me for a while, thank you so much. I appreciate that you guys continue showing up to watch these videos. So with that being said, let's get going. We have a lot to cover today. And so I'll see you in just a couple seconds. Hello friends, y'all, it's so good to be back with you. I have been so sick. Anybody else been sick? This past week I have just been so sick, and I am 100% convinced that it is due to these, right? Anybody else got this going on where you live? And I took this picture, this is middle of the afternoon, and it looks like it's near, twilight time. And then this, it's obscuring the sun. And so, anyway, yeah, I saw that going on. And the other thing is too, yes, I'm totally keeping track. It's driving me crazy. I feel like, what's his face in, trying to get, Caddyshack, trying to get rid of the gopher. It's driving me nuts. I look up when I'm driving around and I see the planes going and this and that. And I groan. I just groan. And I'm like, Abba, how, why? Why are they being allowed to poison us? And so I knew, typically they had been spraying about 2 times a week. And I noticed, I was sick all last week. I noticed at the beginning of the week before, they'd been spraying almost every day. And I was I just had this feeling. So yeah. And there has to be some kind of, let me tell you, because I've been doing some research, there's actually some smart people who've been taking air samples and taking them to the lab to be tested, and they're finding out what's in those chemtrails is cadmium, barium, aluminum, right? High concentrations of aluminum. When they've done autopsies on Alzheimer patients, after they pass away, they all have high levels of aluminum in their brain. Okay, this stuff gets stored in our organs, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and so there's cadmium, barium, aluminum, graphene, right? Graphene. And personally, I think that they are putting COVID variants in there as well. And there has to be some kind of parasite connection here that they're either adding to that, or maybe it's coming through our water. I don't know, because when I got sick, I tried to jump on it the first day right away. And so I was going through, all my normal homeopathics, herbs, and by the second day, nothing was touching it. So then I went to plan B and I started on the ivermectin, which I keep on hand. And by the next day, I was already starting to feel better. So then I took ivermectin for like the next 10 days or so. So anyway, ivermectin is really the only thing that seems to work with parasites. So I don't know how they're doing this, how they're making these cocktails, but this is why I believe everybody in every state here in the United States is getting sick with the same type of symptoms. And so, yeah. So anyway, I'm still not quite 100%. I can still kind of feel it in my lungs. So I'm doing some lung support stuff for that. And I usually do Young Living essential oils. They have a couple of respiratory oils, and that helps me sleep at night. I don't cough at all. So anywho, that's where I've been. But anyway, yeah, I just get so upset, and I don't know why. It's almost like they're just trying to pour hell out on us. How do you go from 2 days a week spraying to like every single day? And then I know they're throwing the cloud seeding in the mix too, because like the week when I saw the spraying, like here in California, we had like high 70s, almost 80-degree weather and sunny skies every day. It was beautiful. So I was taking advantage of that to work out in my yard and clean out my garage. And then, yeah, by the end of that week, I think just being out in it, breathing it in, I was sick. But I think by Friday, the trails looked a little different. So I'm thinking maybe they were doing cloud seeding, because literally the next day on Saturday, I woke up and we had this weird, gross fog. Like it's almost feels a little electrical. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it seems to have like a electrical component. But it's not like the normal marine layer that comes in. It's I just call it a funky fog. And so we've had just kind of, and then the temperatures went way down. So, now we went from being high 70s, almost to 80, to this whole past week it's been low 60s and just damp and cold. And so, anywho, I don't know what you got going on in your area, but I just do want to say that this is all over, the internet, Facebook. I don't Instagram, so I jump onto Facebook every once in a while to see what my peeps are doing, but everybody's starting to talk about it, so we can't be called conspiracy theorists anymore, because people from all over are noticing, and they're making little video shorts and stuff about it. So anyway, all that to say, get your stuff on hand. Make sure that you've got some ivermectin if you can, and just in case. So okay. So today's video is we're going to just chit chat a little bit. There is something that's been really, really strong on my heart for the past couple months. And so I want to share those things with you. So this isn't going to be like our typical video. Okay, and before we get started with the video part, I did want to let you guys know a handful of things. So as I just got done, ranting about how sick I've been and the trails and all that, I want to let you know that I am going to be taking probably the next 3 weeks off. It might work into 4, we'll see. But definitely the rest of this month, and then maybe into the first week of January. And I'm going to focus on my health. And I'm finally to the point where all of my kiddos are home on their winter breaks. I don't have to drive anybody anywhere. I don't have to oversee schoolwork being done and all of that. So I'm going to focus on my health. I'm going to be doing a heavy metal detox to try to get all of these heavy metals out of my body. I have not been feeling good, and I've just kind of been hanging on and dragging through, trying to get through until I could get to this time where I could just rest my body and start doing some detoxing. So I'm going to start with a heavy metal detox. And for those of you that are familiar with that, yes, I have my binder. I'm using, I have activated charcoal and zeolite to help bind to any of the die-off or neurotoxins that are released, and help them exit my body so they don't get stored in my organs or whatever. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be combining that with some juice fasting. I used to juice fast a lot when I was in my mid-20s, and you just kind of gave my stomach a break from having to digest food, and I just would do some juice fasting, and it just kind of cleaned everything out. So I'm going to be doing that as well, and just trying to rest my body a little bit. And I also want to start working on my slides for some upcoming videos. So that's the second thing I want to tell you guys about. I made a list because being sick, my brain's been a little bit foggy. So I wanted to write these down. And so some videos that I have planned for starting in January when I come back. Excuse me just a sec. Let me take a drink. Please give me grace if I'm a little bit all over the place, or if my voice is, if I'm a little bit off, it's because I'm still kind of recuperating a bit from this. But anywho, so some upcoming videos I have planned. I am finally ready to talk about the millennial reign of Messiah. And let me just say, I am 95% convinced, based on all of the research I've compiled over 3 years. I started researching this about 3 years, and just kept it on the back burner, kind of on a watch and see. Every time I came across some information, I've just kept a running Word document going, and I would plug it in and doing a chronology as well. And I wasn't really for it. I wasn't against it. It was just like, what, I need to just kind of see where the evidence leads. And in case, those of you who are newer, one thing I will tell you is what was really pounded into me during years of genealogy training, and especially when I was earning my research certification, is that I am very, very slow to jump on board something. And I will be meticulous in researching. I will turn over any and every available rock, go into the nooks, the crannies. I will look all over the place to see what the evidence shows, one way or the other. I have been trained and have worked very hard on being an unbiased researcher. Even if it's something that I think might be the case, I take a step back. I keep in my logical brain. And I always want to make sure that I'm teachable one way or the other. So I don't get an idea in my head and then just go look for everything that seems to support that. I just take a step back, and I just see where the trail goes. I follow the evidence, and I record it, and then I evaluate it. Why this, not that? What's going on here? What's that? So I'm very, very slow to get on board with something or to denounce something according to what my research is. So as I said, I've been researching the millennial reign. I'm just kind of watching and looking and researching in every place that I know to look, praying a lot to the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, asking for wisdom and discernment. And so this has been going on for about 3 years, and literally just about 3 weeks ago, I accidentally stumbled upon a huge piece of the puzzle that gave there's so much to say with that. And so the reason I say I'm 95% convinced is because I always want to leave that door cracked in case the Holy Ruach wants to shift me or show me something different or bring correction. And so I always want to be teachable no matter what. And so anyway, and so for those of you that are skeptics and you're going, oh no, not her too, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to suspend your disbelief. I am just going to ask you to try to crack open your door just a little bit and let me lay out all of my evidence. And that's going to take several videos. I have a lot. And I'm going to put it in chronological order. And so that's all I'm asking, is that you just don't completely dismiss me. Don't have that like knee-jerk reaction. All I'm asking is that you would be willing to let me lay out the evidence, and then you can make your decision up from there. And just because you make up the decision that it didn't happen doesn't actually mean it didn't happen. It's just, you might be fighting against programming. You might be fighting against fear, like, well, what does this mean? We've all had church programming. If you've been in the churches for any length of time, the pastors knowingly or unknowingly have botched this so much of scripture. So anyway, so that's all I'm going to say on that. And so I will be doing that. And I think that will probably be the first video series I do when I come back in January. Some other videos we're going to talk about Yeshua's disciples, what happened to them after his death and resurrection, after he spent 40 days with them in his resurrected body, continuing to train them and teach them and give them what they would need. And then he ascended back to the Father. And then we don't really hear much from them after, the time of Shavuot, when Pentecost happened. So I've been on the trail of them, and I think you'll be very surprised to know all the different places that they went. We'll talk about them. And then we're going to talk about Solomon. The Old Testament tells us in both Chronicles and in Kings that Solomon married 700 royal princesses from the different nations, and then he had 300 concubines, and that he went from setting up idols all over Jerusalem and Judea for his wives to worship, to actually he began to worship their gods as well. And scripture tells us he went hard after Ashtaroth and after Milcom and after Molech and Baal and all of these, and Remphan, all of these detestable false gods. And so, but then we don't hear anything else. Well, what happened to all of the descendants? What happened to all of the children that were born from those royal wives? So I've been on the trail of them. So we're going to talk about Solomon's descendants and who some of those are today. Then I want to introduce you to Tia Tepe. She was the last Judean princess. She was a daughter of King, I believe it was Zedekiah, and this was around the time when Jerusalem and Judea was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar's army. So we're talking, I think, like 583, 582 BC. And so the prophet Jeremiah was one of the only main prophets that did not get taken to Babylon, like Daniel and Ezekiel did. And so Jeremiah and his scribe Baruch were allowed to stay in the land. And so so we're going to talk about Tia Tepe and where they went and where they ended up. Let's see. We're also going to be talking about, I'm going to introduce you to the black nobility families, which also kind of tie into Solomon, and the ancient Roman, aristocratic, oligarchic families. We're going to talk get more into the Freemasons and the Jesuits. And from there, we're also going to talk about what is going on with the Vatican right now and their one world religion plan. Let's see. We're also going to continue with tracing the Sephardic Hebrews. I've had several of you reach out or make comments saying, are you ever going to go back to that, where you left off? Yes, we left off. We had been covering in the Kingdom of Judah series all the different places that the Judeans that had been taken into captivity, where they went, and then I got sidetracked because I felt like I needed to do the 3 World War series. So we're going to pick back up with our Sephardic Hebrews in Spain and where they went. Okay, we kind of left off right after the Spanish Inquisition. And then we're also going to be talking about the Marine Kingdom. And so, in case you didn't know, the Marine Kingdom is alive and well, and it is on the rise. It's been very, very active. And if you're saying, you mean what, like mermaids and like Poseidon or Triton and all of those? Yep. It's not just mythology. And the Marine Kingdom is alive and well, and I'm going to show you some of their signs and symbols so you can be on the lookout for them. So, and I'm sure there'll be more, but those are just the immediate ones that came to mind and what we're going to be talking about. Okay, now let's get going with our video today. All right, we got our free use warning. Okay. Now, as you may have been a little confused, maybe not, at the title of the video or the thumbnail, and it says it's time for the Goshens. Okay, and so you may be thinking, what in heaven's name is a Goshen? Well, let's see. Okay. And will also tell you guys, as always, but just in case you're new, you are more than welcome to take screenshots of each of these slides for your own research, or you want to share that research with other people. So this is a map I found that shows where Lower Egypt was to the left, and then below, within Lower Egypt, or within Egypt, it shows you where Goshen was. And so this goes back to, if you remember the story in Scripture where Joseph had been sold into slavery by his brothers, and he ended up in Egypt, and then he had, was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, spent many, many years in jail, where the father was working on his pride and his character. And when he was finally at a place of humility where the father could use him, then the father then exalted him, the Most High exalted him, and used him to help prepare Egypt and all the surrounding nations for a 7-year famine. You remember that he interpreted the dream, Pharaoh's dream, and there was going to be 7 years of plenty, and the instruction was to store up during those 7 years of plenty because then 7 years of famine were coming. And so Joseph then became Pharaoh's right-hand guy and in charge of all that. And so he ended up being a huge blessing. And then eventually Joseph revealed himself to his brothers and then had them bring their father. And so all of the Hebrews then came from where they had been, and they all settled in this land of Goshen, kind of on the outskirts a little bit here of Egypt. And so that's really important. So why are these Goshens important? Why was that land important? Okay, so let's read from Exodus 8. So this is talking about, now Moses has been sent in to speak with Pharaoh and to tell Pharaoh repeatedly that you need to let the people of the Most High go. The Hebrews need to go. You need to let them go. And of course, Pharaoh, which I find interesting, unless we're missing something in the translation, it just says that the Most High continued to harden Pharaoh's heart. So he wouldn't let them go, or he would say he would let them go. And then as soon as the plague was lifted, whatever plague, was making him uncomfortable, then he would harden his heart and not let them go. So this is the background. So Exodus chapter 8, starting in verse 20, it says, "Then the Most High said to Moses, 'Rise up early in the morning and present yourself to Pharaoh as he goes out to the water, and say to him, Thus saith the Most High, or thus saith Ahia, let my people go, that they may serve me. Or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you, and your servants, and your people, and into your houses. And the houses of the Egyptians will be filled with swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. But on that day I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people, the Hebrews, dwell, so that no swarms of flies shall be there, and so that you may know that I am the Most High, or I am the Elohim in the midst of the earth. Thus I will put a division between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall happen.' And the Most High did so. There came great swarms of flies into the house of Pharaoh and into his servants' houses. Throughout all the land of Egypt, the land was ruined by the swarms of flies, except for his people in Goshen." Okay. And in Exodus chapter 9, verse 1, we have another instance. "Then the Most High said to Moses, 'Go in to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says the Most High, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go, and you still hold them, behold, the hand of the Most High will fall with a very severe plague upon your livestock that are in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks. But the Most High will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that nothing of all that belongs to the people of Israel shall die.' And the Most High set a time, saying, 'Tomorrow the Most High will do this thing in the land.' And the next day the Most High did this thing. All of the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one of the livestock of the people of Israel died. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, not one of the livestock of Israel was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he still did not let the people go." Okay. Continuing on, again, still Exodus 9, verse 13. "And then the Most High said to Moses, 'Rise up early in the morning and present yourself before Pharaoh, and say to him, Thus says the Most High, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For this time I will send all of my plagues on you yourself, and on your servants and your people, so that you may know that there is none like me in all of the earth. But for this purpose, for by now I could have put out my hand, and I could have struck you and your people with pestilence, and you would have been cut off from the earth. But for this purpose I have raised you up, to show you my power,'" he's speaking to Pharaoh, "so that my name may be proclaimed in all of the earth. You are still exalting yourself against my people, and will not let them go. Behold, about this time tomorrow I will cause very heavy hail to fall, such as never has been in Egypt from the day it was founded until now. So therefore send," and here's the mercy in the midst of the judgment, right? So the Most High tells Pharaoh, "Send and get your livestock and all that you have in the field into safe shelter. For every man and beast that is in the field and is not brought home will die when the hail falls on them." Then whoever feared the word of the Most High among the servants of Pharaoh hurried his slaves and his livestock into the house. But whoever did not pay attention to the word of the Most High left his slaves and his livestock in the field. So that's very interesting So here's mercy being extended in the midst of the judgment, and the wise among Pharaoh's servants heeded the word, and their livestock and their slaves were saved. Some of them. Verse 22. Then the Most High said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards heaven, so that there may be hail in all of the land of Egypt, on man and beast and every plant of the field in the land of Egypt." Then Moses stretched out his staff towards heaven, and the Most High sent thunder and hail and fire. Okay, I've never seen hail and fire together, so this must have been quite a thing. So the Most High sent thunder and hail and fire ran down to the earth. And the Most High rained hail upon the land of Egypt. There was hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of the hail. I mean, can you imagine how terrifying that would be? It must have been terrifying. Very heavy hail, such as never had been in all the land of Egypt since it had become a nation. The hail struck down everything that was in the field in all of the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And the hail struck down every plant of the field and broke every tree of the field. But only in the land of Goshen, where the people of Israel were, there was no hail. Exodus chapter 10, starting in verse 21. Then the Most High said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, a darkness to be felt." So whatever this, I thought that was interesting. Whatever this darkness was, it wasn't just an absence of light. It was something tangible within that. So Moses stretched out his hand towards heaven, and there was pitch darkness in all of the land of Egypt for 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days. But all the people of Israel had light where they lived. So in the land of Goshen, there was light in the midst of the darkness. Exodus chapter 12, starting in verse 21. Then Moses called all of the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go and select lambs." So we're on the final plague now. "Go and select lambs for yourselves according to your clans, and kill the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and touch the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. None of you shall then go out of your door of your house until the morning." So once the blood of that lamb went over the doorpost and the lintels, they could not leave the house. Okay, because that was the protection, and they could not then cross back over and go out. "You shall not go out of your house until morning, for the Most High will pass through to strike the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood on the lintel and the 2 doorposts, the Most High will pass over the door, and will not allow the destroyer to enter your houses to strike you. You shall observe this rite as a statute for you and for your sons forever. And when you come to the land that the Most High will give you, as he has promised, you shall keep this service. And when your children say to you, 'What do you mean by doing this service?' or 'Why are we doing this service?' you shall say to them, 'It is the sacrifice of the Most High's Passover, for he passed over the house of the people of Israel in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians, but spared our houses.' And all the people bowed their heads and worshipped." So isn't that amazing that the Most High set a distinction between his people that belong to him and the pagan, wicked Egyptians. But, there was even some mercy shown to those Egyptians if they heeded the warning, right? And so this is this is what a Goshen is. Okay. That's what the Goshen is. It's the set apart place, the safe, home base, the safe place where there's protection and covering for the people that belong to the Most High. And so obviously in those days, it was the Hebrews, right? He was, they'd been in bondage for quite a while. And I think in order to have faith and to get to know their Elohim, like they needed to see that there was protection for them, right? So not only was the Most High showing his power to Pharaoh, but he was showing his own people too, right? And so we are in a time right now where things are becoming much more wicked, it's obvious that the controllers, and again, I do know that they cannot do anything that the Most High doesn't allow them to do. And it's hard to understand that even with everything that's happening, that the Most High has allowed it. But I do think that we're kind of, he doesn't test us, or he doesn't tempt us, but I'm wondering if he's testing to really see who his children are. And sometimes there's no way to understand or to know until there's heat that's applied, right? Heat and stress and pressure will cause whatever is in a person to come out. When everything is wonderful and good, we tend to, we're flesh people, we're dirt people. And so we tend to take advantage, and we tend to kind of get lazy sometimes. So for whatever reason, he is allowing all the things to happen that are happening. And so it's very, very important that we respond well, that we respond, even if we don't understand everything going on. Like, hopefully by now you've walked with the Most High long enough to know that he is a good father. And hopefully you've seen his protection and his covering, because I don't think things are going to get any better. If they do, they may get better for a time, but then if you read the end of Revelation, you know where we're headed, right? So how we respond in the midst of the trials and the suffering shows our character, right? And we don't want to be found wanting. And we just really need, like I keep saying, stay in Psalm 91. Keep praying Psalm 91, because I do believe he will protect his children, right? And that there will be mercy in the midst of the suffering and in the judgment. And so, but let's talk a little bit more about why in our day and age it's time for the Goshens to rise. Okay, so let me come back over here. Why do we need Goshens? Okay, so do you guys remember, for those of you that have been following the videos, I think near the tail end of the 3 World Wars series, I showed that video with the group of ladies that were talking about the smart cities and what was going on with why places were being burned to the ground, like Maui and Paradise, California, and Malibu, California, and some of these various places, and like the Hurricane Helene that hit the East Coast area, and like what the purpose was. And so I want to just play that clip for you, that small little clip again, because there may be people here who didn't see that. And so I want to show you a couple video clips that I think explain why it's time for the Goshens. Okay.
Is to design neighborhoods so everything you need from your work, your groceries, your schools, your healthcare is a 15-minute walk or bike ride away. And it sounds really convenient and even utopian until you realize what it takes to force that vision into reality. Anna?
I disagree. 15-minute cities don't sound utopian. 15-minute cities basically focus on the idea of housing density, which is packing as many people as possible in a small area. Everything is within reach, yes, but you do give up some comforts. So earmuff the leftists because they love this idea. I hate this idea. I'll explain why after I walk you through what this idea actually entails. Density is really the name of the game. They want to get rid of vehicles and instead replace vehicles with people riding their bicycles or public transit. And again, it's about housing, density, public transit, and kind of keeping people super local where they don't have to travel any further than 15 minutes away to get what they need. So here's a video that kind of explains the thinking behind this. Take a look.
Imagine a city where everything you need is just a short walk or bike ride away. A place where work, groceries, schools, and parks are all within a 15-minute radius. Welcome to the concept of a 15-minute city. Currently, 16 cities around the world have committed to implementing a 15-minute city structure, which many believe will be the way of the future. Paris has taken major strides toward that goal by constructing more than 600 miles of protected bike lanes and introducing more green spaces. That kind of infrastructure encourages sustainable ways of getting around, contributing to reduced traffic congestion and a healthier urban ecosystem.
I want to ask you guys to put on a tin hat for a second.
Okay.
Okay, now this comes from Grant Cardone. So
Friend of the pod.
Okay, right. So Grant, after the fires, he's like, this is all by design, right? And he puts out this tweet. We end up talking to him about it. It's a great podcast. Maybe we could link to it in the show notes.
Yeah.
I have a further conversation with Grant Cardone in depth. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean it's by design? And he connects 15-minute cities to what's going on in California. So now I know you think Newsom could never pull it off, and maybe that's true. But here's the argument. That California is essentially going to become a failed state. And I want to talk about...
Eventually?
Okay, great point. Okay, so hold on. So listen, so what does it mean to be a failed state? So, government paralysis. An inability to maintain law and order, to enforce laws, to balance budgets or manage essential services like water, power, fire, and police. A mass exodus, accelerated flight of businesses, taxpayers, and middle-class residents, worsening the tax-based collapse, rising crime and corruption. I mean, it's like literally exactly what's happening, right? Infrastructure decay, wildfires, blackouts, homelessness, failing schools, public systems crumble under debt and mismanagement. This is California. Now, arguably, the federal government would have to intervene. If you ask yourself, who would benefit from such a thing? Well, I actually asked Grant, right? Like, why would we want this to happen? Why is this happening? Who would benefit from it is real estate developers.
Yes.
It's freaking real estate developers, okay?
And you know who they donate to?
And they want to buy all
candidates.
Well,
it's all...
Okay, so that is who's going to benefit from this. So real estate moguls and global investors will scoop up land for pennies. Federal agencies can seize control of critical infrastructure. Technocrats would have a blank slate to roll out their smart city experiments. Cut to, is it happening? Ready? Do you remember Newsom dancing in the video? Connor, see if you can find this. Vinny made fun of it. As the fires are going on, he's like, we're talking to prospectors. We're looking at deals. We're talking to lawyers. We're talking to prospectors. Okay, I thought he meant we're going to block all of this. I thought, no way is he telling everybody that as homes are still smoldering, he's talking to friggin' prospectors. Cut to this son of a bitch just gave $101 million to build low-income housing in the Palisades.
So
for homeless facilities.
Hold on. So there was so much backlash to that the state legislature
did they drop it?
Yeah.
It just happened a friggin' week ago.
I know, but a few 2 days ago there was a report on Fox 11,
it's crazy.
Local station, where they dropped it because there was so much backlash. Look, I'm in favor of building shelters and housing and for the homeless and all of that. I'm not against it. But we're talking about a situation in which The people in the Pacific Palisades desperately want to rebuild their homes.
Yeah, and they make it hard, so
and
they
they
tap out.
haven't been able to yet.
Yep.
There's
Yes.
all sorts of red tape that makes it
That's
difficult
the
to
game.
rebuild.
Exactly.
So if you're someone who lost everything in the fires in January of this year, and you're hearing that the state legislature isn't taking care of you to help you build your home, and instead is like plotting for some other project in your area, how infuriating is
Can you
that?
play it? Here it is. Here it is. Here it is.
Some ideas about some land use concerns he has around
What
speculators
in the world?
coming in.
Speculators coming in.
Some ideas about some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in. Some ideas
Oh,
about
there's a
some
part where
land
he
use
actually
concerns
says
he
we're
has
working
around.
on it. We're working with legal teams, and he gets into how they're going to facilitate it. But the thing is, they make it impossible on purpose, so you tap out. I tapped out in 2018.
That just hits me every time I listen to that conversation, because it's like it's just so plain and clear, what's happening, and that they're actually talking about it, right? So now I want to watch, show you just a small little 10-minute clip from a homesteader, one of the several homesteaders that I follow, and I'm going to share those with you later in the video. I don't know her name, but her channel is called Morgan Hill Farms. And I love that I learn little tidbits from her. She'll talk about what they're doing on their homestead, but she's very much a watchman. I think I relate, because I feel I'm a watchman as well. Like, my eyes are always roving, like, okay, what's the enemy doing? What's going on? What's the temperature right now? And so she always brings some really good insight to the table. So I'd like you to hear from her regarding what she has to say on this topic.
Guys, welcome back to Morgan Hill Farms. So here's where I'm going with all of this. 80% of Americans right now live in cities or suburbs, and only 20% live in what you consider like a rural or agricultural setting. Some estimates even say that that's closer to only 14% of people living in a rural area. And every year, that percentage goes down and down and down. People are just leaving those agricultural settings. And some of that is probably due to the fact that you have these big developments coming in, and they're just taking this acreage and they're just converting it into these urban centers, city centers. And so maybe it's not even that people are actually leaving the areas. Maybe it's just essentially that those areas are being taken over with those high density developments. If I lived in an urban area or a city and I was kind of seeing everything that was going on in the world with the agenda kind of playing out as it is, I know that I would have a lot of sleepless nights. And in fact, when we saw everything in 2020, I felt incredibly out of control. Like there was nothing that I could do to feed my family if the grocery store didn't have food on the shelves. I just felt like we really needed to get out of our current situation. And so if you guys are feeling this way, I would do everything that you could as soon as possible to get your current home on the market. If you've been there quite a while, you might actually find that you're sitting on some substantial equity. I would start looking at areas, maybe they're going to be a little bit further out than you ideally would want to be, but that's going to give you a little more bang for your buck. That's going to give you the opportunity to get some land and get a home for less money than where you're at right now. Now, maybe the house is going to be smaller, but I would get as much land as I could comfortably afford. Maybe that's 1 acre, maybe that's 5, maybe that's 20 acres. It really doesn't matter. But you just need somewhere where you can start to make preparations for the future. Maybe finding something with a well on the property, maybe it's got a septic system, a creek, a water source of some type. There might even be some outbuildings on that property that you could maybe make into a chicken coop or sort of like a makeshift barn area or something. Just somewhere that sort of has its own resources where you're not tied into everything through your city. When you own land, you've got space to grow your own food, maybe put in some solar panels, you can keep animals, store fuel. Just imagine what that would do for your peace of mind. How much less stress would you have, and how much of a better place would you be in mentally if you didn't feel like you were powerless, if that's the way that you're feeling. It might give you the ability to pay a few bills off if you actually have some equity in your home. Maybe that's paying for the home in cash, but maybe it's just paying off a car note. Or maybe that's paying off a student loan or just a credit card. If you didn't have to worry about that debt hanging over your head, and you were able to decrease your monthly output, just kind of get your family ready for what's coming, how much better would you feel? Everything in the world that we're seeing with digital ID, with AI surveillance, there's always Agenda 2030, just the massive amounts of control that they're really trying to implement. Every month, I feel like there's just more and more and more that they're able to do so quickly. And if somebody wanted to make a move to get out of the city and to get out of the suburbs and become more self-reliant or self-sufficient, I really do believe in America that we actually have enough grit to save our country, to maintain our freedoms from this whole global control thing that they're pushing. And I know that probably sounds a bit lofty. Maybe it's just wishful thinking. But hear me out. I do think if we continue on this trajectory of where we're continuing to watch this agenda play out, I think I feel like there's going to be this major event, basically. It's really going to be tied to digital ID. I think this is how they're going to push this through. Maybe it's a cyber attack, maybe it's something else. But I feel like a major event is going to happen, and whatever event that is, that's what they're going to say. If we had digital ID, this would not have been an issue. And I feel like we're going to see that mandated and pushed through just like in the blink of an eye. That's what we're seeing right now in the UK. They're saying they need those digital IDs to stop that illegal immigration, and that's how they're pushing it through, and they're doing it at lightning speed. And when digital IDs are mandated for every aspect of our life, I think once that happens, I think you're quickly going to find that you lose a lot of your freedoms, and a lot of your privacy is going to be eliminated. And essentially, it's going to prevent you from doing what it is that you want to do, whether that be buying land and becoming more self-sufficient. Maybe it's just preparing and stocking up on canned goods at the store. They're going to be able to track every move. They're going to see everything that you're doing. Put that surveillance together with everything that they're watching you do on the internet. They're going to know what you're planning to do before you even know it. They're going to be monitoring every piece of information, everything that you're researching, everything that you're trying to learn, and everything that you're trying to do. So every day that we wait to do this, we're just betting on a system that already has so many cracks in its foundations. Cities and urban areas, they're built for when things work, not for when things go bad. And I guess when you start to see things break down, the agendas finally start to kind of come together, cities are really going to be that first place where things start to spiral out of control. You're probably listening to me thinking I'm crazy talking about this grand scheme, this grand agenda that I think is going to be taking place. But it doesn't have to be that. It could just be a smaller crisis. It just takes one little spark. And think of the things that have caused riots in the past, civil unrest, right? It's just one political view. It's just one story in the news. And that's really all it takes for that chaos to start. Now, even if you're prepared for it and you're in a city or an urban area, you're not growing and raising your own food. And that's a big problem, because once you open that first can of food, or once you open that first prep, that clock starts ticking. It's not like you can go to the store and replenish that. If the store doesn't have it, then your clock has started and your food is going to start dwindling, your supplies, your batteries, your medical things. You're not going to be able to replace those. So here's what I would be doing. I would be looking for land. Now, it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe it's a home. Maybe it needs a little bit of updating. Maybe it's smaller than what you're used to. But I would get myself out of the city. I'd get some land underneath my feet. I'd start building something, maybe set up a water system. I would build a garden, maybe some animal areas on my property. I'd start getting supplies and just kind of learn as much as I could. I know a lot of people are looking at me and you're saying, oh, that's easy for you to say. You're already standing in a garden that you've built. You already have things in place. You already have a home built. You have animal areas set up. You've got the chicken coops. And I get it. I'm already in this place, and that seems very easy. But in 2020, we sold our house without knowing where we were going because we felt that the Lord told us to. We sold our dream home. We sold a home with a kitchen that was absolutely beautiful. I still long for that kitchen. Now, I'm not ungrateful for what I have here, but I'm trying to convey that everything is not perfect. Everything was not perfect for us. When we moved here, if I could have just taken that home and put it on this property, I think that would have been the ideal situation. But we left our home, and we left a church that we loved. We left a homeschool community. We left neighbors that loved my children like they were their own flesh and blood. They would bring them gifts every holiday, every birthday. And that was really difficult, not knowing where we were going or why we were moving. And not knowing if we were going to find a property after our house was under contract, because our house was under contract to be sold and we had not looked for anything at that point. What I'm saying is that, yes, I'm already here, but that's only because we went through this about 4 years ago. The same thing that I'm saying that I would do again. The uncertainty of not knowing where we were going to lay our heads, if my kids would have a bed. We made that choice to move out of our comfort zone because we knew we had to do it. Things can happen in the blink of an eye. You never know when the next crisis is going to hit. It's not like they're forecasting this and you have time to react and prepare. And so I really encourage you guys to be as self-reliant as possible so that you can thrive in those difficult situations. Because you're not guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed that you're going to find food on the shelf when you go to the grocery store, cash in the ATM, fuel at the gas station. You're not even guaranteed in a month that you're still going to have the opportunity to sell your house and to move to property to put your family in a better situation. So while you still can, and the world has some bit of sanity in it, and you still have some of your freedoms, I would be doing all that I could to get where I needed to be. And I know that that's easier in the moment. It's easier in the moment just to kind of stay where we are. We feel comfortable, do what we've always been doing. And I know it takes a leap of faith because we've done that. I know it takes blood, sweat, and tears because we have done that. But I'm telling you, I am so glad that we did it. I am so glad that we went through that season of uncertainty because of the peace it's brought us. Knowing that I have the opportunity to work in this garden and grow food. Knowing that I have the opportunity to get my hands dirty and clean chicken poop out of a chicken coop or go down and deal with pigs that stink to high heaven. Any discomfort that I'm going to have in this life is worth it. And I'm just telling you guys what I would do if I was still in that situation. But 100%, I would do it all over again because I know that we are in a better place. I know how well I sleep at night. I know how much less stress we have. My biggest concern is getting my potatoes out of the ground before the frost hits, not whether or not I'm going to be able to find food for my family or supplies or be able to get gas in my car. And so if you guys can, and you really feel led to do that, I would say do it because in the short term it will be painful, but in the long term you will be so grateful that you did it. But anyways, guys, the sun is getting lower. It's pretty blinding right now, actually. This daylight savings time thing really kills me because it's just really mid-afternoon, but it feels like it's 5 o'clock. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you in the next video.
So what did you think about that? I think she brings some really, really good points to the table. And for me, I mean, my spirit really resonates with the things that she is saying because I feel the exact same way. And so, yeah, I just think that is really, really important. So let me pop back over to my slideshow. And so in addition to the 2 videos I showed, I mean, let's not forget about the Committee of 300's plans for humanity. Okay? I didn't put this in with the... I did not add this in at the tail end of my videos on John Coleman's hierarchy, the Committee of 300, because I knew I was going to be doing this video and I wanted to save it for now. But in addition to what the 2 video clips, like, these are the plans that the Committee of 300, the elite, the shadow government, they're not even a government. They go beyond governments. They don't have allegiance to any governments or any places. They're like the kings without kingdoms, right? But these are the people that are creating and giving orders to all of the puppets that we see, the rulers, the presidents, the prime ministers. And so I want you to hear, this is from John Coleman's Committee of 300. I want you to hear from them what they have planned for us. Okay? So they plan to induce a state where there is no individual freedom. Now remember, when it's not just a state, remember, they are already fully into the one world government, right? This is why they are breaking down barriers between states. This is why they've allowed all these different migrant people from all the other different nations to come into, like, the UK and into America, because to break down any national pride, to make them such melting pots. And then they bring all of their stuff, good or bad, with them as well. And so what they're trying to do, this is all by design for the one world government. So they want to induce a state where there is no individual freedom or any concept of liberty that survives. There shall be no such thing as republicanism, sovereignty, or rights residing within the people, or with the people. National pride and racial identity shall be stamped out, and in the transition phase, it shall be subject to the severest penalties to even mention one's racial origin. So not only can we not have national pride for our country or our state, but you can't even be proud of your nationality, right? Only one religion will be allowed, and that will be in the form of a one world government church, the one world religion, which has been in existence since 1920, as we shall see. Satanism, Luciferianism, and witchcraft shall be recognized as legitimate one world government curricula with no private or church schools. All Christian churches have already been subverted, that means infiltrated, and Christianity will be a thing of the past in this one world government. I think we can see that now with everything that's going on with most of our churches. The economic system shall be based upon the ruling oligarchical class, allowing just enough food and services to be produced to keep the mass slave labor camps going. So they're planning on creating labor camps, right? All wealth shall be aggregated into the hands of the elite members of the Committee of 300. Each individual shall be indoctrinated to understand that he or she is totally dependent upon the state for their survival. The world shall be ruled by a Committee of 300 executive decrees, which will become instant law. Boris Yeltsin was using Committee of 300 decrees to impose the committee's will on Russia as a trial run. Courts of punishment and not courts of justice shall exist. And that's what the world courts are going to become. They will become courts of punishment and not a court of justice. You'll be judged or punished of whether you are a compliant citizen of the one world state or not. There will be no middle class. only rulers and servants. Are we not really seeing this now? We saw this happen really hard with when COVID was rolled out, right? We began to see all of the mom and pop, not all of them, but many of the mom and pop restaurants and businesses closed down because they couldn't stay open. But the big box stores like Costco, like Amazon, Sam's Club, some of the the big box stores that belong to, that are enterprises of the Committee of 300, those stayed open. But like where I live, so many restaurants went out of business. So many restaurants went out of business. So many, and they're still little by little doors shutting down. And this is all by design because they don't want a middle class. They are the rulers, and they want to make sure that all the rest of us are reduced down to slaves or servants. All laws will be uniform under a legal system of world courts, practicing the same unified code of laws, backed up by a one world government police force and a one world unified military to enforce laws in all former countries where no national boundaries shall exist. And I think we're probably seeing that with the National Guard. I'm taking a guess that that might become the official military that enforces all the laws. The system will be on the basis of a welfare state. Those who are obedient and subservient to the one world government will be rewarded with the means to live. You get to stay alive as a slave. Those who are rebellious, which will be all the rest of hopefully us listening to this, they think that we will be starved to death or we will all be declared outlaws. Okay? We definitely will be declared outlaws, and thus will be a target for anyone who wishes to kill them. Privately owned firearms or weapons of any kind will be prohibited. Okay? So this is a big reason why we need the Goshens. Okay? Because they're so arrogant. Again, they think that just because they say these things or make these pronouncements that we're just going to roll over and take it. But time and time again, they don't know the Most High and how He thwarts their plans. Okay? Euthanasia for the terminally ill and the aged shall be compulsory. Okay, it's going to be a done deal. You won't get a choice. No cities shall be larger than a predetermined number as described in the work of Calgary. That must be a book. Essential workers will be moved to other cities if the one that they are in becomes overpopulated. Other non-essential workers will be chosen at random and sent to underpopulated cities to fill quotas. At least 4 billion useless eaters shall be eliminated by the year 2050 by means of limited wars, organized epidemics of fatal rapid-acting diseases, and then also starvation, right? Because they're gonna start removing the food sources or the ability to get food. Energy, food, and water shall be kept at subsistence levels for the non-elite, starting with the white populations of Western Europe and North America, and then spreading to the other races. The population of Canada, Western Europe, and the United States will be decimated more rapidly than on any other continent until the world's population reaches a manageable level of 1 billion. So again, this ties right back into the Georgia Guidestones, right? Of which 500 million of that 1 billion will consist of Chinese and Japanese races, selected because they are people who have been regimented for centuries and who are accustomed to obeying authority without question. Now, if I was an Asian person reading that would make me very angry. But what they're basically saying is that they have so beat and drilled obedience into the people of China and all of these, these Asian nations that they'll keep them around because they know that they won't be hard to manage, because for generation after generation, they've been taught to obey. Otherwise, there's been severe consequences. From time to time, there shall be artificially contrived food and water shortages and medical care to remind the masses that their very existence depends on the goodwill of the Committee of 300. After the destruction of housing, auto, steel, and heavy goods industries, so little by little, they've whittled those away, right? They've destroyed that. They're destroying housing. Auto and steel and all of like our manufacturing plants went to China and Indonesia. Okay. We make very little of our own stuff here. And it said there shall be, after the destruction of all of those, there shall be limited housing, and industries of any kind allowed to remain shall be under the direction of NATO's Club of Rome, as shall all scientific and space exploration development limited to the elite under the control of the Committee of 300. Space weapons of all former nations shall be destroyed along with all nuclear weapons. All essential and non-essential pharmaceutical products, doctors, dentists, and healthcare workers will be registered in the Central Computer Data Bank. I think that's the B system. And no medicine or medical care will be prescribed without express permission of regional controllers responsible for each city, town, and village. One thing I forgot to mention after, showing the clip of the smart city conversation, like I've really been paying attention in my area as to what's been going on in Southern California, and any and all vacant land, like all over my area, is being developed, quickly developed. I'm watching apartment buildings going up all over the place, and the housing costs here are so astronomical right now, and all of the property taxes have gone up so much, and our utilities are at an all-time high. And I literally just got a notification the other day from the gas and electric company that coming in 2026, those rates are going up again. So they're slowly squeezing, because what they want to do is they're putting people in positions where, the interest rates are so high for the housing loans. And when you combine the property taxes and the utilities, a lot of people are in danger of having their houses foreclosed on. And this is all by design, because what they want to do is get rid of the single family homes, and they want to put up all of these apartment buildings. Why? It's what the ladies were talking about. Packing humans into spaces, manageable spaces that are easily controlled. So I see all this happening around me right now, and it's very alarming to me. So I already see this in play. Start looking in your area. Are you seeing land being developed, land that was just there? Oh, and the other thing that they're doing with some of like the wildlife spaces here, we're set for our city. There's going to be a hearing to vote, because they want to put in, there's some wildlife land, and they want to put one of these big data centers. Please, if you have something like that coming to your city, show up and vote no to these data centers. These are AI data centers, and our grid is already borderline as it is. When these data centers go in, like, it's just not good. These data centers are not good. Please vote no if you have them in, coming to your community. So it's very, very alarming. Okay, continuing. Each person shall be fully indoctrinated that he or she is a creature of the One World Government with an identification number clearly marked on their person so as to be readily accessible, which identifying number shall be in the master file of the NATO computer in Brussels. That is the Beast 666 system that we talked about in the prior video, right? They're keeping they have everybody's birth certificate numbers in there. If you look at your birth certificate, if you were born in a hospital, you were issued a birth certificate, it has a number on it. Your driver's license number, your social security number, anything having to do with you is in their 666 Beast supercomputer, which is in Brussels, Belgium. And so now they're not just talking about a digital ID, but they're talking about your number is going to be somewhere on your person, so that it's readily accessible for instant retrieval by any agency of the One World Government at any time. The master files of the CIA, FBI, state and local police agencies, IRS, FEMA, and Social Security shall be vastly expanded and form the basis of personal records of all individuals in the United States. No central bank, except for the Bank of International Settlement and the World Bank, will be allowed to operate. So now we're going to start seeing the closing and the doing away of all the different banks, right? And so your personal ID, so they're going to whittle it down to where everybody has to either will be a part of the Bank of International Settlement or the World Bank, and your accounts are going to be tied to that. And if you don't comply with what they want you to do, you can be locked out of your bank account so that you have no money to buy or sell. Okay, do you kind of see how we're already in the different phases of this? So this is what it will come down to. Private banks will be outlawed. Remuneration for work performed shall be under a uniform predetermined scale throughout the One World Government. There shall be no wage disputes allowed, nor any diversion from the standard uniform scales of pay which will be laid down by the One World Government. Those who break the law will be instantly executed. There shall be no cash or coinage in the hands of the non-elite. All transactions shall be carried out by means of a debit card, which shall bear the identification number of the holder. Any person who in any way infringes the rules and regulations of the Committee of 300 shall have the use of his or her card suspended for varying times according to the nature and severity of the infringement. Such persons will find that when they go to make purchases, their card is blacklisted and they will not be able to obtain services of any kind. Attempts to trade old coins, that is to say, silver coins of previous and now defunct nations, shall be treated as a capital crime subject to the death penalty. All such coinage shall be required to be surrendered within a given time, along with guns, rifles, explosives, and automobiles. Let me just say right now, this, I don't know what it's like where you are, but where I'm at, I actually stopped into a restaurant or what was it? I think it was a Luna Grill. I just wanted to pick up a chicken salad from them, and I went to pay. I had cash on hand, which I don't always have cash, because if I have cash, then my children ask me for it. But I actually happened to have cash, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't take cash. It's debit card only, debit or credit card only." I was like, oh. Now, in some places, some places will still allow you to pay cash, but they may not have coins, so you may not get change back with that. But more and more restaurants here are starting to say, no cash. It's debit or credit card only. So that's already starting to happen right now. Only the elite and nope, I guess I wasn't finishing that one. If the offense is a serious one, your debit card will be seized at the checking point where it is presented. Thereafter, that person shall not be able to obtain food, water, shelter, or employment, medical services, and shall be officially listed as an outlaw. Large bands of outlaws will thus be created, and they will live in regions that best afford subsistence, subject to being hunted down and shot on sight. Persons assisting outlaws in any way whatsoever shall likewise be shot. Outlaws who fail to surrender to the police or military after a declared period of time shall have a former family member selected at random to serve prison terms in their stead. So we're going to come back to this because I have some things to say about this. This is why it's important to have a Goshen, because all of us who refuse to comply will automatically be declared outlaws. We'll come to the point where our debit cards will not be able to purchase anything. They will not be taking cash. And I mean, this is going to be like the wild, wild west. Like, you can just be, depending on the infraction, you can just be shot for your resistance. So we better have Goshens that are dedicated to the Most High and where we can survive by bartering with one another, or being able to grow our own food and be self-sufficient, because that's the only protection we're going to have is on our Goshens. They also go on to say that marriage shall be outlawed and there shall be no family life as we know it now. Children will be removed from their parents at an early age and brought up as wards of the state property. And then they'll go through, they'll be raised by, this is Hillary Clinton's words, right? That the state that should be raising the children is what these people believe, so that they can be indoctrinated at a very, very early age. And I just want to say, if you think that couldn't happen, those who were following along on my Kingdom of Judah series during the time of the Spanish Inquisition, and even before the Inquisition happened, they literally were removing Hebrew children from their parents at a young age and then giving them to Christian parents to raise. Basically, by saying Christian, I mean Catholic, right? Because Christianity under the Catholic Church was Catholicism. So it was actually happening where Hebrew children were being taken from their parents and being given to either Catholic parents or Hebrews that had converted to Christianity, to Catholic Christianity, to raise. So there is precedent for this. The personal computer card, which sounds a lot to me like digital ID. The personal computer card, which when fully distributed will deprive us of, so this is now, this is John Coleman kind of wrapping this up. And he's saying, the personal computer card, which when fully distributed will deprive us of our familiar environment. And as we shall see, environment means a lot more than the usually accepted meaning of the word. The United States has gone through a period of intense trauma such as never been visited on any other nation in the history of the world, and yet the worst is still to come. So, like, this again is, he published this about 1993. So 9/11 had already happened, right? And so how much more has happened since then? He says, everything is going according to what Tavistock ordered and what the social scientists at Stanford have mapped out. Times do not change. They are made to change. All changes are pre-planned and come as the result of careful action. We have been changed gradually at first, but now the pace of change is picking up. The United States is being transformed from one nation under God to a polyglot of nations under several gods. The U.S. is no longer one nation under the Most High. And the original framers of the Constitution have lost that battle. And we'll get into that. That's going to be another video I didn't put on there. But we have not been the United States of America or the United States for America since about 1871. There was Ulysses S. Grant coming out of the Civil War. There was a document he signed called the Organic Columbia Act of 1871. And so Washington, D.C., I think many of you probably already know this, it is its own state. It's its own state, like Vatican City is its own state, has its own police, has its own flag within Rome. Same with London City, where the crown jewels sit, where the Rothschilds own. It's an independent sovereign state. Washington D.C. is as well. It is another nation on. It's like a foreign nation on our soil, and so it actually is the American corporation. This is why politics is a joke, and it doesn't really matter who you vote for, because these people do not work for us. They haven't worked for us for a long, long time. They work for the interests of the corporation. Whatever president is sitting president at the time, he is president of the corporation. Okay, and so he will do what he's mandated to do because he's a puppet of the corporation, and they're all owned by the black nobility families that sit on the Committee of 300. So you need to know that. If you're frustrated and going, but we elected you and you're supposed to be doing these things for us, that hasn't been for 200 years or so. It's the American corporation. So, and that will be its own video as well, because within each state was told around that time that they needed to incorporate as well. So this is why you've got sometimes in your cities they'll put banners and say incorporated in 1881, incorporated in 1885. So you have the cities are all incorporated, and then the rural areas are unincorporated. And so the incorporated areas have police. The unincorporated areas function under the law of the land, and they have sheriffs and marshals. And so just so you understand that. Okay, moving on. So these are some of my favorite homesteading channels. Okay, I want to get more into the Goshens and the creating of the Goshens in a little bit, but I want to inspire you. And so if you want to learn more about how to create your Goshen and how to develop skills, I have some of my favorite homesteading shows or channels that I follow, and I have just been watching these and taking notes, and they're valuable resources. And what I love about the YouTube channels is that you can actually email them or make comments, and many of them will, with questions, and they'll email back or respond back. So first and foremost, number one, which I think the value is this has so much value, is this is on Discovery Plus, and it's Homestead Rescue. And I just said I highly recommend paying the $9.99 monthly subscription fee for Discovery Plus, because they have all the HGTV shows on there, and they have a whole bunch of stuff as well. But I mainly went into this because of Homestead Rescue. And the Rainies are a second generation Alaskan homesteaders who for half the year they will travel to failing homesteads in the lower 48 states to help save the homesteads. Failing homesteads will reach out to them and say, please, Rainies, will you come and help us? And I don't know the whole process for who's chosen or, what criteria, but some of these, usually the people they go to are, if they don't receive help, like they're in crisis mode and they're in danger of their homesteads failing. And any animals or people that are on there as well. And so it's very family friendly. So this is something that you could actually sit down with your children and as a family watch together. Not only is there is so much going on, it's got that action, but it's like real life. It's not, there might be some scripting of some, scenes and things, but these are real homestead families that are in dire need with real problems. And it's just it's enough to keep your attention. You're not going to be bored watching it, and you're going to learn a lot. And it's something you can watch as a family to get everybody on board with this. And so you're going to learn some new skills too. So, and it also will give you a great perspective on what dangers the homesteads face in each of the different areas. The desert areas have different needs and dangers than, like the East Coast areas where they get tons and tons of flooding, or the Midwest where they get lots of tornadoes, or, places like Alaska or Montana or Wyoming where, or northern Idaho where they have very short growing seasons and they get a lot of snow and cold. They even cover, Hawaii, which has got its own set of things happening there. And so highly recommend it. The beautiful thing about it is there are, you can cancel at any time. You'll only pay for, if you cancel, you'll get the rest of your month depending where you are in the month, but you're not locked in to having to do it for a year or anything like that. And there are 13 seasons. They've been doing this a long time, and there are 13 seasons to this. And I literally just, especially when I first started watching, I sat and took notes. So highly recommend that. Can't say enough about it. Okay, one of my next favorite that I just love is the Tiny Shiny Home family. It's a mom and dad and their 4 children, and I've been probably following them for 4 years. They are in Cochise County, Arizona. One interesting fact about Cochise County, it's I will say it's a little bit more new agey over there, but lots of very nice people, it seems. And Cochise County gives the option for opting out. I'm not sure what you're opting out of exactly, but you don't have to you're opting out of doing traditional house builds with permit, having to go through the permit process and all of that. You're going to opt out of all that. And so this family, they're building, they're living in their Tiny Shiny Home, which is a Airstream trailer. And then they've been on their land for 4 years, and they're slowly building. They've built certain things, but right now, for probably the last 2 years, they've been building a roundhouse out of dirt bags, because they want to be more nature friendly, and they didn't want all the stuff that traditional builds come from. So it's been really, really eye-opening. Jonathan has, you can go click on their icon and go into their playlist of all their videos. He's done some videos just on how to do your solar, and they brought a shipping container in, and they've made a goat barn out of that. So you will learn so much from them. Okay. Another one I love, is fairly new to me, is Our Brown Farmhouse. And this family, they are in Texas, and very, very smart. Like, I really appreciate the content they put out and what they're doing over there. I don't have as much experience with them because I just found them maybe a couple months ago, but I'm really enjoying their channel. I think they've got like 4 or 5 children, so it's really fun. All of these are family friendly. I really love Tiffany's farm. Tiffany is a single mom with 2 daughters, and then her dad came out. I think her dad is the guy to the right, came out to help them with some things, and he ended up just moving out there. So I love that she's got that covering, because she's got a couple of neighbors that have been really bad, but they are hard workers. They are a Christian family. I think they're probably Hebrews too, but they're Christians, and I really enjoy watching their video. And they're in Georgia. And then one of my other ones, I love the family homesteads. Obviously, there's a theme coming here. Good Simple Living. And this family, they are Hawaiian mix. And Jeremy was born and raised and grew up in Hawaii. Secretly, I think he's a little Hebrew too. He's got some Sephardic and Portuguese and a mix of other things, but extremely hard workers. They've got 5 children, and they bought land in northern Idaho, and they built their house and all of their buildings from scratch, the 2 of them together. So many good skills, and I just love their vlog. Then there is this guy. He cracks me up, and his channel is called Frugal Off Grid, and I feel like he's I don't know, he cracks me up, but he's very like hands-on. He just kind of jerry rigs everything, but I enjoy the stuff that he brings to the table. Like, he's got skills. Like, he can fix it, he can make it. And so he is somewhere in Arizona. I haven't figured out what part, but he's in Arizona. And then I've recently found her too. Like, this is called Rooted in Jays. And she's Tony and her husband. It says it's Jermaine, husband and wife team. They're in Florida, and this woman actually, I found her. She gave some really great advice about why for fruit trees, and it helped me make a shift with a white peach tree that I have, or a white nectarine tree. And so she has got super gardening superpowers. I think and I really enjoy her channel. And then, of course, I introduced you guys to Patera on the last video I did, and I enjoy her. She's kind of like the Morgan Hill farm lady. You get some homestead stuff, but then they're watchmen. They have their finger on the pulse of everything that's going on, and they have a lot of good discernment. And so Patera as well. And then I think I mentioned too, Patera's also got some Cherokee in her as well. So it's just fun to follow. And she's and her family are in Tennessee. And then this is the Morgan Hill Farm gal. I can't remember her name. And they are in South Carolina. Okay, and then lastly, I love this channel. It's called Homesteading Family, and I think her husband's name might be Jared. I might be wrong on that. Her name's Carolyn, and they've got 10 children. They homeschool, they homestead, and she is just so humble, so kind. She puts out a lot of classes. She'll do a lot of like free classes for like bread making, canning, like water bath canning, pressure canning, how to make your own dairy products from raw milk. Like she puts a lot of free classes out. She'll offer them, and then if that's something that you want more help with, then she offers master classes that you purchase the master class, and it's an online class, but then you own it. So you can refer back to that a month from now, 10 months from now. You'll have access to whatever the master class is, and she walks you through. And she's got so many skills that so many of our grandparents and great-grandparents used to pass down, and we've just lost them all. So it's great to have a Goshen. It's necessary to have a Goshen, but we have to learn these skills. We've got to go back and learn these skills that we've lost. And it's going to be a trial and error process. Okay, let me go back over here. So those are a few of my favorite things as far as homesteads go and learning skills. And so what I want to move into now is how do you find land? How does one go about creating a Goshen? And I am not an expert by any means, but I have started creating my own Goshen. Okay, and just to kind of give you a little bit of a backstory. Like you, I lived through 2020, and like you, had the veil removed and was in, I think I literally shut down at different times for several days at a time because I was so naive, so Pollyanna in my view of the world. I could not, like many of you, I watched the Fall of the Cabal series. And I could not wrap my head around the level of evil. And then kind of once I processed through that, that's when I really started digging into research, a lot of which I'm, putting on these videos. But I was terrified. I'm not going to lie. I just was like, what? I don't understand. Like, how did all of this happen? And then that panic and that fear and that like feeling completely helpless. What am I going to do? And so, 2020 had all of the challenges that we all faced. And then going into 2021, it was kind of like, when stuff started to open back up again, I think we all kind of, not that things ever went back to normal, and they're never going to go back to normal. It was just, it was just kind of going, sighing relief that like, okay, I made it through this, but I'm never going to look at life the same again. They're probably going to do something like this again. What do I do? And so there was one morning that I was just doing my scripture reading, and I happened to be in Exodus and was reading all of Exodus and reading the same chapters and verses that I just read to you today. And I began to see this pattern of where the Most High had separated out Egypt and where he had put his people in Goshen. And then as I'm reading, the various plagues that he brought onto Egypt, and then where it would say, but his people in Goshen had light where there was darkness. The livestock of his Hebrews in Goshen were not touched. Like, I began to see, and I thought, oh my goodness, he's protecting his people in the midst of all of this stuff that's happening around them. Like, there was even in some places where it said such and such was happening in Egypt, but the Hebrews were watching from Goshen, all of these things come upon Egypt, but it did not come upon them in Goshen because they had been set apart. And so I just kind of closed my Bible and kind of sat with that and was chewing on that and ruminating on that. And then my spirit kind of just began to pray, Abba, I want to create a Goshen. I want to create a Goshen for myself and for my family, and for anybody else, any of your other people that would be near me that might need a Goshen if you chose to send somebody there. But at the very least, I want to create a Goshen for myself and my family, where we can be set apart unto you and be protected, because I just knew that we were in a lull and that other things were going to be coming, and we're starting to see them now. So again, this is 2021 that this is just kind of coming out of me, and I'm praying this. And I just said, if it's your will, may it be so. And then there were some things that happened, which I'll get to. I'll add another little piece of that in just a few minutes. But I literally, a year later, had the opportunity come up to buy some land in North Arizona. Now, I kind of had my sight set on Idaho. There, I had been watching during 2020 and 2021, seeing all of these conservatives, people that I knew, and just kind of following and watching so many conservatives leaving what they termed commie California, and they were heading into this little area of Idaho outside of Boise called Treasure Valley. And so I thought that looks amazing. I actually, right before COVID was released on us at the beginning of February of 2020, I flew in to visit a friend around that area, and I wanted to look around and see. And then I came home, and it was just like, I'm not sure. Like, everything seemed very expensive, and I just, I didn't have a go-ahead to do anything, and so I didn't. And so then in 2022, like, the Most High dropped something in my lap that I wasn't expecting. I was not even looking. I was not actively looking for land. And I definitely was not looking towards Arizona at all. And so it's just a whole long story, but I ended up, the Most High just made it very, very clear. There were so many confirmations, and I ended up being able to buy 10 acres of land in the high desert area of North Arizona. And obviously, for safety reasons, I'm not going to share where that was, but elevation is, 4,600, 4,700 feet in elevation. So it's cooler than at the, the basin level. Like Palm Desert out here can get upwards of 120 in the summertime. And because of all the concrete, I don't live in Palm Desert, but just as an example, it can get upwards of 120. And because of all the concrete around, that heat, it doesn't really cool down too much at night. Las Vegas is the same. So I definitely knew I couldn't be in a basin level. And I was born and raised in Colorado. And so I tend to feel really good at higher elevations. Being down here at sea level in California, I always feel very sluggish, I don't do well with the humidity either. So my body tends to like higher elevation, thinner air, and a drier climate. So this land that I was led to, I was able to purchase that, and I'm going to share in a little bit how I was able to do that. And I chose completely off-grid land because I pay through the nose here for my water, for my gas, for my electric, and the house that I rent here has solar panels, and I pay less than maybe people who don't have solar panels, but it's the cost of everything has increased so much. And I've learned the hard way that if somebody else controls your power, if they control your water, the more control that somebody has, then they control you. And so I purposely selected 10 acres that was completely off grid so that, and I paid for it outright. And again, I'll share with you how I did that, because I did not want to finance it, because what did I just read to you about the banks? I think people who finance through a bank, they can call that loan in at any time. And very few people have the money to pay off that loan if their loan gets called in. So purchasing property through a bank, I think that's just, I'm sorry, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. And you're just setting yourself up, because it's going to be another level of control. They can take that land in a heartbeat. And I think that it's better to have off-grid land. Even if you purchase land that maybe has some power to it, use that in the meantime, but get yourself set up to be able to live off-grid, to be able to produce your own power through solar or wind energy. You do not want to rely permanently on a generator. They're noisy and require fuel. And gas and propane right now are extremely expensive. But you want to try to be as self-sufficient as possible. So let me go ahead and I want to show you my setup. Okay. This is my Goshen in northern Arizona in the high desert. Okay. What I love about it is that I get all 4 seasons, just not anything. Well, probably the heat in the summertime is probably it's more, but it gets snow. So I've got mountain ranges all around me and foothills, and we do get some snow in the wintertime. Typically melts off within a day or by the end of the day. The locals like to say it'll be gone by the time you finished your coffee or whatever, but just depends. But it doesn't get as cold as like in the northern regions up like northern Idaho or Montana or Wyoming or like New York or the East Coast. It doesn't get that cold. And so it snows and it's pretty, but it doesn't stay around too long. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, like I said, I'm going to tell you in a little bit how I was able to purchase this. I love the Father's creativity. I'm so thankful for his Ruach, his Holy Spirit, because literally step by step, the Ruach would say, do this. Okay, and I would do that. And then I'd get the next step. And then I'd get the next step. Because I had no idea how to do any of this. And so I bought the land outright. And because, again, I didn't want to finance it. I didn't want to be owing to anybody. I didn't want something that somebody could take from me. And then that's all I did. And then a year later, so in 2023, I'm watching all of the prices of everything go up. And I thought, if I wait too much longer, I'm not going to be able to afford to put anything on this land. So I did some investigation for the area, and because it's in an unincorporated area, So it's far, it's probably about 45 minutes from the nearest city, which I wanted that. And I'm in an unincorporated area, and very, very rural, very quiet. And so, I wasn't sure what I could put out there. I had called a couple builders in town, in the nearest town, and they're like, either they're like, you're too far out, or they're like, do you have power and water? And at the time I did not. And they're just like, lady, we have enough business where we're at in town. Like, there's no incentive for us to go out there. And then I ended up finding a, not too far away, ended up finding a manufactured home business, and they were wonderful. And they kind of offered a one-stop shop. And just to be transparent with you, this was 2023. I ended up paying about $228,000 for the home, and I got to design everything on the inside and the outside of the home. It's 1235 square feet, so not, a little over 1,000 square feet, but not too much. And that price I paid included the manufacturing, the building of the home, and everything in it, but it included the delivery. It came on two flatbed trucks, and they delivered it out there where I couldn't get anybody else to come out and do anything. But so that price also included the tax for it, the delivery of the two parts, and then the complete putting it together. And so it sits up, because I didn't want it to be on ground level because of monsoon rains, and also because of snakes and critters, because it's very, very dark out there except for the stars. And so, I didn't want to run into, maybe coming home and having a snake or something around the door. So it does sit up, and then it's got the skirting around it. But once they delivered it in the two parts, then it took several more months to go through like the normal permit process. And, they had to put up, do the mudding and the taping and putting everything together. I had them not put the flooring down because, until after, because I didn't want a seam running through the floor and tripping on that. So they put everything together, then laid the flooring down so it all looks cohesive. And so that also included my septic. They did my septic for me. Like, it was an all-inclusive one-stop shop. That so much I got for that money. And so now I have the land and I have the house on it. And I will tell you how I did this. I paid for this with my retirement account. So I'll come back around to that in a minute. I used my retirement account. And so because it was paid for with my retirement account, I cannot physically go move there for about another 4 to 5 years. Once I'm 60, basically, I can then retire there. And so that's fine, because I'm still raising my last two kiddos. They're teenagers, but about the time that the last one turns 18, it'll be about, the time where I can go and start splitting my time. But I have enough land, like my children, especially my two adults that I have, they're like, we don't want to leave California. We love California, because they've never known anything else, right? And they're young and fresh, and they're just living their lives. They know of some of the stuff going on around them, but they're just, young people. They just live in the here and now, right? And so they're not thinking about the things I'm thinking about in the future. And I don't want to tell them everything that's happening. I give little bits here and there as they ask, but I want them to have some semblance of a life before all of the stuff that we talked about, that, from John Coleman. If they knew all of that, I don't want them so afraid that they can't leave their house, right? But I also know the time is going to come where it is not going to be safe for them to be in California anymore. So I had to make sure that, actually the Most High made sure that my land was within an 8-hour drive for them, 8 to 9 hour drive for them, that they could get to me in a day if they had to flee. And so I've kind of run out of money, right? I'll show you some of the other things I did. I've kind of run out of money right now. I have set aside what I need to pay my yearly property taxes. And I'll show you what else I was able to put in place, but I still need solar. I don't have the funds for solar right now. And honestly, I'm hoping and praying that in the next 4 to 5 years that we'll get some free energy, right? That there'll be other means besides just solar, or that maybe solar will come way down. But I'm not going to stress about it, because the Most High has led me, His Ruach has led me every single step. And every time I go to the land, I do another little project. So here's what I've done so far is, and this was this J box. You see the wooden post with the metal box. The manufacturing home company also put that up. That's a J box. It's like a power box, and so so they did that as well. I went with one of the local gas companies. I'm renting. In the background, you see that long white tube. That's 1,000-gallon propane tank. And that cost me about $1,200 to fill that. I think that was like 80% full. They can't fill it all the way because in the summertime the gas expands and you don't want it to blow up. And then I don't know if you could see it or not, but there is a gas line attached to that. And then I had a local guy that's one of my neighbors there. Paid him. He came with his equipment and dug a trench, and so I have a line going from the propane tank to the side of the house where the gas line attaches, and half of my appliances run on gas but with propane fittings. So I had the same gas company put propane fittings, and so I have like a gas stove and oven, a gas furnace, gas water heater. I have a gas fireplace, and I'm rethinking that. I'm thinking, because it's just so expensive, I'm actually thinking about having that insert taken out and just putting like a wood stove in there, because I've got tons and tons of wood and mesquite trees and things on my land. So I'm rethinking not using that as a gas fireplace, but just having a wood stove, a smaller wood stove put in there and then fixed to use that for heat, because propane is just so expensive. And then in the forefront, sitting in front of the J box post, the little black square sitting there, I have a dual fuel generator. It runs on both gasoline and propane. Now, if you put gasoline in it, I think technically you get 9 to 10 hours of runtime with that. So what I did is, when the guy did the trench for me, so that the gas company could run the gas line from the propane tank to the house, we added, or had it kind of tee off, and that gas line goes to my propane, goes to the generator, and I run it off the propane so that I don't have to constantly keep refilling it like gas. But again, that is not meant to be permanent, because number one, I'd have to be spending anywhere from like $500 up to $1,200 to refill that propane tank, which is a lot. And that generator is extremely noisy and it just echoes where I'm at. So this is not meant to be a full-time solution, but at least I've got power when I need to be out there. And then for water, because the water table is like something like 800 to 1,000 feet down, where I'm at, and it costs a minimum of $40,000 to drill for water with no guarantee that you're actually going to find water. So nobody out there, nobody has $40,000. Most of us don't even have $40,000, but let alone $40,000 to drill, not knowing that you're going to actually find water. So what most people do is they do, like, this is a solar pump, this little wood box. I'll show you the fittings inside. It's a pressurized water pump, and then that runs on solar. So it's got solar panels on top, and then it's got an electrical outlet on the side, so I can plug something in if need be, and it's to get electricity for solar power. And then it's got like a spigot also that I can attach a hose to it. But in the background, you see these two big black tanks. Each of those is 2,500 gallons. So together, that's 5,000 gallons of water. And for the time being, this same neighbor, and he charged me, of course, not only to do the trenching, but he went and picked these up at the Home Depot in the town and then transported them out to my property. And then he also has a water truck. So he went to where the nearest, town well was, and he hauled the water and filled up the tanks for me. So I at least have water. And then one thing that the manufacturing home did for me is they actually dug a trench from my water tanks and under the house, underground, and then connects to the house, so that when I'm inside the house, I can flip any faucet and the solar pump is pressurized and it will pull water out from those tanks, and then it takes it to the house so that I can flush toilets in the house, run water just like I would, in my rental house right now in California. So my goal is to get, more of these tanks if I can, because a lot of people will daisy chain them together. And then so we get monsoon rains that come in Arizona, especially like in the high desert. During the summertime, the monsoon rains come, and so there's already like natural washes that are carved out on my land, but they come so fast, so much water and so fast that it will flood some of the roads and things. And so I do plan on, like any other buildings or things I put out there, I will have rain gutters to capture the rain coming off the roof. And I'd like to get, maybe 2 to 4 more of the tanks, and to be able to capture my rainwater. And if you daisy chain the tanks together, then as one tank fills, it flows into the next. And then as that one fills, it'll flow into the next. And this is how a lot of the homes, Arizona or high desert homesteaders that I follow, this is how they capture their rainwater to last for a year. And then of course, they all have like a triple tier water filtration unit, attached somewhere to their house to triple clean that water. Usually there's like a UV thing that's like the final step, so that any of the water that comes, whether it be from the town well water or the rainwater coming off the roofs from the monsoon rains, that it gets filtered, as it comes, before it comes out of the faucets and things like that. So, so that's kind of what I have in place now. But again, I still need some other kind of power, whether that be solar, whatever. But again, the Holy Ruach, the Holy Spirit, has led me so far, step by step. This is all I've been given so far, and so I think I'll have what I need. I have about 4 more years till I can, 4 to 5 more years till I can move out there. And so I'm just trying to sock away little bits as much as I can. But I'm really dependent on the Most High to provide the rest of what I need. Now, in these pictures, this is what's on the inside of that little solar pump. And you can see that's where the inverter, the pumps, and the battery is that pulls the water and pressurizes it. And then in the middle picture, I've got a covered power plug and then a hose connection for the outside. And so one of my next not too expensive projects, probably in the spring, after the ground has thawed, is I want to travel back out there, and I already have, I want to start creating some berms and swales so that they'll kind of go across the washes and help capture some of that rainwater. And so what I'd like to do is plant some trees, drought tolerant trees on kind of the berms. And then I'll probably put some rain catchment barrels behind them or near them, and then do like a drip irrigation. And so I want to kind of follow what Leviticus 23 talks about with the fruit-bearing trees or things like that. Like if I remember correctly, you're not supposed to eat the fruit of them until the 4th year. So I figure if I can get some of these trees set up, like, I don't know, I may be completely off on this, but I'm thinking that the topography and the kind of the conditions out there seem like they might be very similar to Israel. I was able to go to Israel in 2001, years and years ago, and so it just kind of reminds me of that. So I'm going to try maybe planting some olive trees. I want to try planting grapes. So I got to figure out what grapes would thrive in the high desert. I want to maybe try some coffee plants. I'm trying to think of things that I can do that when I'm out there that I can produce to barter with neighbors, or to have some kind of income or self-sufficiency, not only for myself to use, but to maybe trade with some of my neighbors. So that's kind of my plan, some things. My next step, I want to, plant some of those things in the spring. Okay, this is a neighbor. This is not mine, but this is one of my neighbors. Let me come and kind of check out their homestead. And he and his wife had built this solar array. And so they kind of have a similar house, my size. They have some other outbuildings and things, but this is kind of what it takes to power, like the house that I showed you. It might be more than is needed, but this is the system that they have. So if I do solar, I'm going to need something similar. And then the other thing I need to develop is gardens. Now, it gets so hot out there in the summertime that it just will fry plants. So one thing that my neighbors do, or my nearest neighbors, I should say, they did above ground beds, but then they have shade cloth over them. And I don't know. I would have to check with her. I forgot to check with her to see what she was able to actually yield with that. I think that this might work very well for fall, because you can still grow like a normal garden like in the fall out there because it's more normal temperatures. But one thing I'm really leaning towards is looking at kind of what the Native Americans do, and is a Wallapini underground greenhouse. This is really good for places of extremes, like whether you're in the north, like Montana, Wyoming, northern Idaho, like because if you dig down into the earth, the thermal temperatures tend to stay regulated year round. So in the summertime, if you're in the desert like me, it keeps things cooler, and then they have a better chance of surviving and not getting completely fried. But then it's a year round, because then in the winter time, it's warm in there and can keep temperatures consistent. So I probably would definitely love to figure out how to maybe do a Wallapini underground greenhouse, but I might also have some above ground beds, maybe for fall time. I'm not sure, but it's just fun to be able. This is the beautiful thing about having your Goshen, is you can experiment, you can play around with it while we still have some time. Okay. And then one thing I'm doing here in California, because I've been a gardener for several years, and my garden has failed the last 2 years, and I think it's because of the increase in the chemicals being sprayed on it. And I've also noticed when I turn my garden hose on that there is a very strong chlorine smell, and who knows what else. And so that has been very, very alarming. Like this the past 2 summers, my garden has started out well, looking well, and then things literally shriveling on the vine. And I have a horrible raccoon and possum problem. Like, you wouldn't think about that. I have friends in Louisiana, and they were just completely shocked that, I'm in the city in California, but I'm dealing with coyotes. My predators here are coyotes, although luckily my walls are 6 feet, so they can't get in, because they'd have to come up of a slope, right? But I've got raccoons and rats and possums that love to come and eat my produce, and then the snails absolutely love tomatoes, and they'll eat half the tomato and then just leave it sitting. And so it's been extremely frustrating. And so I'm, again, as I mentioned in the last video, being a Girl Scout leader for 10 years, like, I'm all about preparedness. And we have 2 main sayings, okay, in the preparedness community, and that is, better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And then the rule of, like, 2 is 1, 1 is none, meaning if you have 1 can opener and that breaks, then you've got none. If you have 2 can openers, preferably hand crank, and 1 breaks or falls apart, then you've got 1. 3 is 2. So having multiple layers to your preps. And so when thinking about my garden, it was like, okay, I can't grow food outside anymore because, I'm not going to be able to feed my family. So after doing some investigating, doing some prayer, I ended up purchasing, this is a lettuce grow hydroponic tower. And I was able to use a firm to make monthly payments. I paid on it for about a year. I just paid it off a couple months ago. And these, you can get an outdoor version or an indoor version. I opted for the indoor version, which is on the left, and it's got grow rings, and it's got slots for the little plants to go in. Like you can start out with their plants, and then eventually I want to learn how to do my own seedlings to put in. Because again, the goal is to be self-sufficient, but it's got grow rings. And so I have it sitting by my sliding door. This isn't my picture though, but I did put mine next to the sliding door. So it does get some natural sunlight, but it's got these grow rings. So you could easily put it in your garage or another area, and the grow lights will help it grow. And then you can see to the right, this is an outdoor tower, and it just and then there's a pH solution that you add to the base, and the water, and then there's tubes, and then there's a pump down there, and it pumps the water up, and then it sprays down over the roots that are inside the little baskets. And so I'm going to try that, because that way you can have produce year round, and having it be inside, it's not going to get sprayed by anything. So there's this system, and then I also saw there's another hydroponic system called Garden, Gardyn, and I'm sure there's other ones out there. So if you want to, if you've been having gardening woes and issues, lots of chemtrail spraying, like we don't want to ingest that, right? You might want to consider an indoor system, and these have different lights that hang down and then they shine on the plants. So there's definitely these hydroponic systems I think are a good investment, and I think you might be able to do them on a payment plan, because they can be upwards of like $2,000 if you get all of this stuff. So being able to divide that into payments is definitely helpful. Okay, the other thing I want to recommend is Marty Rainey has a book. It's called The Homestead Survival: An Insider's Guide to Your Great Escape. And so he gives some tips on how to look for land, what to look for on the land. And obviously you want to make sure that you're going to have some kind of a water source and things. So I have found this very, very helpful. It runs for about $17 and some change on Amazon. That might have gone up, I don't know. And here are some sites that you can look for land. These are, I think, probably the best way to find land. Again, in my opinion, you want to purchase land that is, if you can, in an unincorporated area. You'll have more flexibility than if you're within city limits. Okay, in my opinion, you do not want to be in the unincorporated area. You want to be rural and unincorporated. Okay, because the rules of there's subtle differences between the rules of the police for the corporations versus the law of the land under the sheriff, just a little bit different. Okay, so landwatch.com is a great place to look for land, farms, and ranches for sale all over the United States. Zillow, believe it or not, is a great place. Just you can go on Zillow and look for lots for sale or rural land. It might be hit or miss. Facebook Marketplace for your area is a great place to look as well. Seems strange, but people will actually list land for sale on Facebook Marketplace. Another great site is Land and Farm. You can pull that up and then just put in your city or state that you want to be in. And again, this is why I put Homestead Rescue at the beginning of this, because if you watch those episodes, they are helping homesteads in the high desert, in the low desert, in the northern areas of like Alaska, Montana, Wyoming, Hawaii. They're helping people on the East Coast that are getting 100-year floods, and they're getting 3 of them in 1 year. And so the problems that's creating, like, I think if you watch enough of those, you'll get an idea maybe where you want to look for land based on your family's needs. And again, try to look for rural land. And I highly recommend that you do not buy land sight unseen. Whatever land you think you want to purchase or you're looking at, you need to go look at the land. You need to walk the land. You need to investigate the land. You need to see if you've got good access to your land. You want to see if is there a water source on the land? Is there already like a spring or a well there? Or are you going to have to, what are you going to need to do? Like, you need to go physically look at the land, because pictures, the people who are advertising the land are going to give you beautiful pictures, but maybe you've got a swamp on the rest of the land. You don't want to buy land sight unseen. You want to go walk it, talk to the owner, the person who's selling it, and ask questions. Okay. Okay. Let me pop back over here for a minute. Okay. So how I was able to buy my land is, my parents, I was basically orphaned by the time I was 46, and we lived hand to mouth my entire life. And so, before I got married, and so, I never had an inheritance, didn't have any money from my family. I shared on a prior video that after 20 years of marriage that my former spouse and I went through a divorce. It wasn't always super amicable, but we did both agree that it would be better if we did a marriage settlement agreement. California is a community property state, meaning you're going to go through the court system and the judge is just going to divide everything down the middle. And if you go through the court, like, you lose your ability to, to decide how you want to do it. So not only did we not want the court costs and everything involved with that, we just decided that it would be better if we could act like adults and decide among ourselves. So it took us 2 to 3 months of kind of sitting down and doing some haggling, but making sure, we both had to give up some concessions, but it was make sure that it was a win-win for both of us. And we decided how we were going to allocate and split our assets. And then obviously we did 50-50 custody of our children. We both have an open door policy, so the children can ebb and flow and have access to either parent whenever they want. Like, we decided again to be adults and to not use our children as pawns to punish one another. There was no reason to do that. So we choose to be amicable for the sake of our children, and because we both fear the Most High. We've kind of gone different paths with our faith. Like I've shared on here, I've pulled out of the church and the churches and all of that, but we do still realize that we're accountable to the Most High, and so we try to be civil and kind with one another as best we can. So this is how we divided things. And so we had retirement accounts, and those were just completely split. And I have been very vocal before. I am not at all on board with the stock market. Okay. I have done too much research into that the stock market is it's sketchy at best. It was created by the banksters who are part of the Committee of 300, and the Rothschilds, like, every stock market crash that has ever happened since its inception, starting in England with Nathan Rothschild, it is all by design. And they will crash the stock market, and then while it ruins all of everyday people like you and I, they will then turn around and buy up stocks for pennies on the dollar. And they've told you, like I've read through with you in previous videos, especially the three World War series, that they tell you in there, within the protocols of Zion, within the secret doctrine of the Illuminati, like I think even with some of the stuff we did with the John Coleman document, like it is the stock market is not a real thing. It's not a tangible, and I'm having a hard time grasping the word, but it's speculative. They flat out told you it's speculative. You're gambling. The stock market is gambling with your retirement. And I think we're probably due for another crash at some point, because from what I can tell, it just seems like the stock market is very overflated right now. So I know this is going to sound very judgmental and very mean to say, but if you were one of my family members or a very, very close dear friend, I would tell you to get out of the stock market while you can, and then take that money and you can put it into a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k, depending. I mean, let me just simply say, give you my disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. I am not a banker. I'm not someone who is well versed in this, but I am a researcher who has seen, I've had friends, I've known people that have lost their entire life savings when these markets have crashed. And I think that it is better to stick with tangibles, things that you can touch, things that are real. And so after my divorce, my half of my retirement account was put into a traditional IRA. And then I flat out told my financial advisor, I said, do not invest in any stocks with that. And he said, well, what do you want to do with it? I said, I don't know, but do not invest it in the stock market. Because I have also looked into some of the companies, the top companies, that people are investing in, and a lot of these companies are satanic. They're just satanic. And so what is your money being used for as it's being invested in these companies? So I ended up, this is before I purchased my land. I just felt like the Spirit was leading me, the Holy Spirit was leading me. So we put them into interest-bearing CDs, which were getting like 5% interest at the time. And it sat like that for about a year. And then about a year later, I made an appointment with my financial advisor, and I said, I want to invest in land. And then it got very quiet, and he said, we don't do that. I said, I can't use my money that's in my IRA to invest in land. He goes, no, that's not something we offer. And I said, well, how do I do that? And basically he said, you would need to convert this, roll it over into a self-directed IRA. And he said, again, we don't do that. And he was actually being very, very nice with me. He was a very nice guy. And so I did some research and some investigating, and there's two main companies that seem to be very, very reputable: American IRA and Equity Trust. And they deal with self-directed IRAs and solo 401ks. And so, long story short, I rolled over my traditional IRA into a self-directed IRA. There was no fees for that. I did have to pay like a one-time startup fee with the company that I chose to go with. But like when you're at a brokerage firm, a typical brokerage firm, your financial advisor is taking a cut monthly, I think, for managing your accounts. Whereas a self-directed IRA or like a solo 401k, immediately, like that money, when it rolled over, a trust was created for it. And that's the other thing. When you purchase your land and whatever on it, you want to put that into a trust to protect it. And again, you need to find somebody who deals with wills and trusts, but you want to get all of your assets into a trust so it's protected and stays within the trust should you die. So that's what I did. So I transferred that over to a self-directed IRA, and then once, like a year later, once I was directed to this land, I used my self-directed IRA, or which is in the name of my trust, and I purchased that land through my trust, which the self-directed IRA held. And same with the home. So when it's held in a trust, when it's held like through your, don't know exactly how a solo 401k works. I think you have a little bit more flexibility, but when you do a self-directed IRA, that's your retirement account. So it's in that trust. And so anything if you use that to purchase land, or you use that to purchase gold, whatever you use, any kind of real estate, things that you use your self-directed IRA or your solo 401k to purchase, then it's held by that trust. And so then according to the IRS, then you have to be their magic age of 59 and a half, or basically 60, before you can pull that out as an asset distribution. So that's why I can't go live there until I'm basically 60. And then at that point, what I have to iron out or figure out is, if I take that as an asset distribution, then I'm going to have to pay taxes on it. So it might be better for me to just see if I can keep it within the trust, and am I able to live there and utilize it and still have it be protected and kept in the trust. So these are some nuances I have to figure out now. And so anything that I have put on that land, I've paid for out of that trust. And they have those two companies, they have an amazing, Equity Trust and American IRA both have a compliance department, and anything that I'm like, can I do this? Can I do that? I was able to call and talk to somebody in the compliance department and say, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? And they'll tell you, and then they can do the transactions for you as well. And so, I would seriously tell you with everything in my being that if you are in the stock market right now, if you were my loved one and I was giving advice to you as my loved one or as my family member, I would tell you, while you're doing well, cash out, get out, put that into a self-directed IRA, and buy your land. Now, if you have the ability, if you currently have a house, and equity in your house, now would be a really good time to try to sell that and use your money to purchase your Goshen. I think we have a little bit of time. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm saying if you were my friend, if you were my bestie, or if you were a family member asking me for advice, this is what I'm going to tell you. Because I do think another crash is coming. And this is why I say you're like gambling, because you that fictitious amount of money in your account, ebbs and it flows. It goes up, it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. And then your financial advisors will say, oh, when it's down and it's only worth half its value, they'll say, oh, just write it out till it comes up again. Okay. It's a fictitious number. It's not money that you can just go, take out. And if that crashes, that inflated value you have right now is gonna go way, way down. So I think it's time to stop playing Babylon's games with Babylon's magic money system, and that's what the stock market is. It's all part of their money magic system. And start dealing with tangibles. Get your Goshen, get your Goshen set up. And if you don't have a larger family on board with you, right? Try to find an area where, if you're going to look at land, ask about the neighbors, try to meet some of the neighbors, because, if you can't create a large family compound where you've got your extended family members, you want to make sure that you can have community with your neighbors. You're not going to be able to do everything on your own. Okay. You want to have a community, a like-minded community that you can be able to barter with. Maybe a couple of your neighbors, some of the neighbors where I'm at, they have cattle, like steers and stuff. Well, if I can do some chickens or quail, and if I have got some olive trees or coffee plants that I can get, or make my own wine that doesn't have all the sulfites and things in it. I've got things I can barter with, and for meat or things that I can't do myself. And so you want to be able to live in the ultimate goal of the Goshen is to live in a community or a like-minded community where you can barter and trade with your neighbors, so that you don't have to necessarily have money. You can trade your skills or this or that. So okay. So let me come back over here. Let's get this finished up. So another possibility for financing, if self-directed IRA or solo 401k, or selling your house while you have equity in it, right? Sometimes you can find people who, if they own land and they want to sell some of it off, you might be able to do owner financing. And this is basically where the person selling the land becomes your bank. But rather than dealing with the bank, you're going to work out a contract, and you get everything in contract. Don't just do on verbal. Put everything that you guys decide on together. How much, how many acres are you going to purchase from them? And what is the agreed upon price that they're going to let you, you're basically renting to own your land and then you're going to determine what are your monthly payments you can afford, and how many payments is it going to take you until you have that paid off. And if you're able to pay it off sooner, making sure there's no liability for paying it off sooner. But basically the owner is going to provide the financing for you, and you're basically going to rent to own. But everything needs to be in a contract, and then that needs to be notarized with a notary so that it's legal and binding. And that protects both the person selling to you, and that protects you, so that nobody's going to be taken advantage of. So owner financing is another option. Sometimes, you can find people willing to do that. So that is another option. Okay. So again, here, the other ways to buy land using your retirement. Self-directed IRA. Your 401k can be converted to a solo 401k, and your traditional IRA, I don't think you can do it with the Roth IRA, because with the Roth IRA, the money you've put in the Roth has already had taxes taken out. I don't know, but for sure with your traditional IRA, you can convert that to a self-directed IRA, and your 401k can be converted to a solo 401k in order to buy land and assets, real estate, things like that. Okay, and again, take screenshots of these. Here's information for American IRA and also Equity Trust. You can call and talk to both companies and ask questions and see which one would work best for you. Okay, and so just wrapping up, as I said at the beginning, since I am going to be taking 3 to 4 weeks, depending, just to kind of 3 weeks for sure, so I can try to get my health under control, get some detoxing done. I want to be able, I need to start taking my research from Millennial Reign and putting it into slide format, things like that, and just taking time to enjoy having all my kiddos home. So if you want to reach me, if you need to reach out, you have a question, whatever, you can email me at ourhiddenhistoryrevealed@gmail.com. I don't know why that line is there. You don't need it to be, you don't need the underline, but it's just ourhiddenhistoryrevealed@gmail.com. And so take a screenshot of that. If you want to keep in touch with me, while I'm kind of doing my little rest period, then feel free to do that. I don't know. If I find inspiring videos or things that I think would be helpful, I might put some of those out, but or I might do some posts or some things like that, but not really going to do any videos until like the first part of January. Okie doke. So thank you for hanging in with me. And please, 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 please start praying. Pray with your spouse if you have one. Pray with your family members. Pray. Go and ask the Holy Spirit if this is what the Father would have for you. If it's time, while you still have time. Because again, just like better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, you don't want to wait until it's go time, until you are having to flee where you're at, trying to figure out where you're going to take your entire family. Like I said, I think we have a bit of a window of time right now that we're being given to prepare. So those who have ears to hear, and you feel that confirmation in your spirit, like, yeah, start investigating, start trying to find land. Where are you supposed to go? Figure out all the logistics, right? Check out, get that subscription to Discovery Plus. Start watching those homestead rescue videos. At the very least, it's something your whole family can watch, right? And then figure out where you're supposed to go. Okay? And again, if you have any questions, reach out. Stay safe, stay well, get your preps on hand, because I think poison is coming to a town near you. So if you're not already super sick, like I don't think they're going to be letting up anytime soon. And then, as we talked about on the previous video, they may be coming out with a COVID 2.0. I'm not sure, but let's get our house in order. The other thing I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of purging right now, getting rid of stuff, selling a lot of really good stuff on Facebook Marketplace in my area, giving, stuff to Goodwill, giving stuff, clothing that my, kids have outgrown, just putting it on for free to families who need it, especially single parent families that need, good quality clothes. And because even Goodwill, I'm hearing, is charging ridiculous amounts for things. So I'm trying to streamline and purge my body of toxins, trying to purge my home of unwanted things. I'm doing everything I can to get my health in order, my house in order, and my Goshen in order. So I wish the same for you, and I will see you very, somewhat soon, in a handful of weeks. All right, take care. Bye-bye.